A very good morning to one and all present in this webinar. Hope you all are fine with your family well-being. On behalf of Ram-Eesh Institute of Vocational and Technical Education, Greater Noida, I, Dr. Sandeep Kumar Bansal, heartily welcome you all in today's webinar entitled Role and Responsibilities of Pharmacy Graduates in the Era of Precision Medicine and COVID-19. Ram-Eesh Institute of Vocational and Technical Education, Greater Noida, is one of the premier pharmacy institutions of Northern India. The institute is accredited with NBA since the year 2010 and is the only private institute accredited thrice with NBA in entire Uttar Pradesh. The institute is running Diploma in Pharmacy and Bachelor in Pharmacy courses since last 20 years with an alumni pool of more than 1,700 serving worldwide in public and private sectors. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Bhagwat. Dr. Bhagwat Prasad is an associate professor in the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Washington State University, Spokane. He leads several federally and industry-funded research programs on characterization of inter-individual variability in drug disposition, that is, drug transport and metabolism. He serves as a director of proteomics-based research in non-cytochrome P450 enzyme, that is PRINCE. Prior to moving Washington State University, Dr. Prasad was an assistant professor at University of Washington, Seattle, and was affiliated with University of Washington Research Affiliate Program on Transporters as a co-director. Dr. Prasad has published more than 80 peer-reviewed articles and more than 100 conference abstracts and delivered over 70 invited talks at various conferences. Prasad is a recipient of 2018 ISSX North American New Investigator Award. Dr. Prasad's work was selected for the Early Career Faculty Showcase at 2018 ASPET meeting. Dr. Prasad also serves as a secretary of the Drug Metabolism and Disposition Division of ASPET. He co-organized 2018 ISSX workshop on quantitative proteomics and was a member of organizing committee for the 12th International ISSX meeting 2019 held in Portland. Dr. Prasad is a member of editorial board of Drug Metabolism and Disposition. Dr. Prasad obtained his MS in 2006 and PhD in 2010 in Pharmaceutical Sciences from Naipur, Mohali, and he was a postdoc with Professor Jess in University of Washington, Seattle from 2011 to 2014. Research in Prasad lab focuses on prediction of inter-individual differences in drug disposition and response. Prasad lab utilizes quantitative mass spectroscopy, which is used to quantify specific enzymes, transporters, and endogenous metabolites in human tissue and biofluids. With these words, we heartily welcome you, dear Bhagwat. We are thankful to you for accepting our request for this webinar. Now the audiences are over to you. Please proceed for your talk on the topic, role and responsibilities of pharmacy graduates in the era of precision medicine and COVID-19, and enlighten the audience. Please, Bhagwat.
Thank you, Dr. Sandeep Bansal, and again, thank you, organizers, for giving me this opportunity to talk about this topic here. And I really appreciate your kind introduction and invitation. So when I was thinking about this title for my talk, I was initially debating whether I should present a research talk or think about a more broader perspective in pharmaceutical sciences, considering the current perspective and current times, which are really unprecedented and uncertain. And so the first of all, I hope you all are doing well, and I wish you good health and really good time at home or if you're working from your offices with limited capacity. So I decided that this will be a great opportunity to talk about how pharmacy discipline can contribute in this era of precision medicine and COVID-19. Precision medicine might be a jargon for some of you, so I will be defining it in more detail in coming slides. But I think when it comes to COVID-19, we really, it has become really important. The precision medicine term has become really important, and so we should understand it in a better sense with COVID-19 perspective. So let me share the outline of my talk here. So the outline of my talk is I will be first defining how I'm defining pharmacy graduates and why there is a need to define and understand pharmacy graduates today. What is precision medicine? Then I will talk about the importance of precision medicine in public health, giving an example of codeine and some of the work from our lab. Then I will talk about COVID-19 pharmacotherapy and implementation of precision medicine in COVID-19 pharmacotherapy. Finally, I will talk about role and responsibilities of pharmacy graduates. I basically embed these role and responsibilities in my talk as I move forward. And then also share some opportunities in these challenging times. So first, let me define this, how I'm defining pharmacy graduates here, and why there is need to define pharmacy graduate today. And the reason is because we have traditionally underappreciated the value of this discipline. And I'm being very frank here, but this is true. I'm basically trained in India. I did my diploma in pharmacy, followed by bachelor in pharmacy and bachelor of pharmacy and a master of pharmacy and finally PhD, all from India. And I always felt that this discipline has been underappreciated by us ourselves. Whether we are faculty or students, we always underappreciate this discipline. And so I think there is certainly the need to think more about this particular topic first. So one thing that I like about this discipline and really enjoy or celebrate is this unique domain knowledge that we have as pharmacy graduates. We learn chemistry, and it's not just chemistry. We learn natural product chemistry. We are more specialized in organic chemistry, in chemistry of drug metabolism, the drug synthesis. We talk about inorganic chemistry. We have been taught about inorganic chemistry with respect to drugs. Then we have been taught on biology, from anatomy to physiology to pathophysiology, microbiology, diseases and so on. So we know we have that bandwidth in biology and understanding of biology. We are unique with respect to formulation development. What goes in a formulation when you convert a chemical molecule to a drug, there are multiple steps, and that's what we specialized on. And so I think that's something that we should celebrate. Similarly, we have this unique knowledge of mechanisms of pharmacokinetics, mechanism of pharmacodynamics with respect to efficacy, toxicity, and drug-drug interactions, which is a unique field that most of the physicians, nurses, they are not that much trained also. And then the regulation with respect to drugs. So these are all different areas that we learn during our the pharmacy courses in India, and this is something that we really have to really understand, and then see that can we use this domain knowledge in this perspective of the precision medicine and COVID-19. And I hope in my talk I can leave this take-home message that we are unique as a pharmacy discipline, and we can do much better in these uncertain times. And I will share some of the thoughts that are my personal opinions, but I hope you will agree with me. So let me first define precision medicine. And in going back with this definition, this is a relatively new definition. It is sometime in the past was called personalized medicine or individualized medicine. But it's actually the precision medicine, meaning they're stratifying individuals, stratifying patients in groups rather than treating, with the concept of one size fits all. So one size does not fit all. We have to create, we have to identify right patients before starting a treatment. And so this precision medicine concept started with the concept of blood transfusion. I'm sure in early 1900, when Professor Karl Landsteiner discovered that some transfusions are treating the patients well when they were doing blood transfusions, but some transfusions were deadly. And so we understand that we cannot give the same blood to all the individuals, and this is applicable to drugs also. This is applicable especially with respect to the different dosing of drugs, and that's something that I would like to highlight here. So if you have to literally define it, the precision medicine is an emerging approach for disease treatment and prevention that takes into account individual variability in genes, there's variability in environment, and variability in lifestyle for each person. And as you can see here, we have different SUSIs, right? SUSIs. And so, this is applicable to drugs, particularly when it comes to some narrow therapeutic index drugs. So let me first begin with defining to you why we are different when it comes to the pharmacy and from the pharmacy perspective and pharmacotherapy, basically. And so I will go with this, the phrase here, which is a Latin phrase, sola dosis fecit venenum, which literally means dose makes the poison. Okay, so every drug is a potential poison. So if a same dose, a same dose that is effective in person A could be toxic to person B. And this is not only drugs, even this is applicable to herbal compounds also. Okay, and this is because when we take a drug and when we take a particular dose, it could be, its drug absorption could be different in one person, or drug disposition, which is basically drug metabolism, drug transport across the blood membrane, the blood to tissue membrane, and the concentration at the site of action could be very different. And that can also be different at the level of receptors. So the levels of receptors could be different in one person versus another person. Okay, so what is the need is using the precision medicine believes that we have to predict if a particular drug is safe and effective for an individual or not. Okay, and so giving an example of when you are giving a drug to patients such as who have kidney dysfunction. By the way, in the United States, there are 15% individuals who have kidney dysfunction. And so when you're treating individuals without knowing that this person has kidney dysfunction, you might be exposing this person with a higher drug concentration that can lead to toxicity specific to that person, which will not be evident in other people. Similarly, when we talk about pregnant women, so the dose that we are giving to non-pregnant women, and if we are giving the same dose to pregnant women, that can cause some differences in the pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of drugs, and eventually affect the fetal development also. And there are multiple examples. I don't need to go there. So what is the consequence of ignoring this precision medicine, and how this variation in drug response has led to failures? This is an example which I'm sure you all will appreciate, that what I'm showing here is the many patients do not respond and benefit from first recommended drug treatment. Okay, so here on the y-axis, I'm showing the percent of patients not responding to first therapy. Okay, and the y-axis, x-axis axis is showing the disease conditions, basically. For example, in case of depression, there are 38% patients who do not respond to first therapy. And the main reason is because they are not, their metabolism could be different, their disposition could be different, their drug absorption could be different, their receptor binding could be different, and therefore we don't see efficacy in almost 38% individuals. When it comes to cancer, and when people are treated for cancer, 75% patients do not respond to first therapy. Okay, so the physicians are changing and they are doing this trial and error things, which is a very dangerous thing, because you are exposing the patients. There are necessity in those individuals, right? And so this is the reason why we need to consider precision medicine. We have to understand who are the patients that will respond better from a pharmacotherapy than the others. And there has been a huge impetus on this issue of precision medicine in last 5 to 10 years. And I think this is a need of hour that we need to also appreciate here. And I will be elaborating with some example. Let's talk a little bit more about what causes variation in drug response. And as you know, the drugs start with active pharmaceutical ingredient. There could be differences in the quantity of active pharmaceutical ingredient in the formulation. There could be some formulation characteristics that can lead to variability in drug action. But usually these APIs and formulation are regulated by regulatory bodies and controlled well with good design by pharmaceutical industry. So in these days, except in case of herbal formulation, we have a good hold when we have the pharmacopoeial drugs. We have good quality APIs and we have good quality formulation. But what we cannot control is this absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion in an individual. And this differential ADME from one person to another person, and similarly the response from one person to another person could be very different. So for example, the abundance or the amount of drug metabolizing enzymes in liver from one person could be different from the drug metabolizing enzymes in different person, and so you will have this difference in the metabolism rate. So this we call it interindividual variability. So basically, there are a number of factors that can cause this interindividual variability, and I have listed some of them. So age, for example, if you go from neonates to adults, there are huge differences in the drug metabolism, drug transport, the pharmacodynamic effect, and so on. Similarly, the gender can affect drug absorption. The pregnancy can affect. The food can interact with drugs. So if you take different food with different drugs, that can also influence drug action. Different ethnicity, herbal supplements, for example, when you're taking, that could be drug or interaction. I talked about disease condition like kidney disease or hepatic dysfunction can cause differences in drug action. Similarly, drug-drug interactions, sleep deprivation, exercise, these are all different factors that can influence. Of course, some factors are more detrimental to other factors, but ultimately what they lead is they cause the variability in this circulating or tissue drug concentration, which can either cause drug toxicity or sometimes cause lack of drug efficacy, which for infectious diseases can cause drug resistance. So how pharmacists can or pharmacy graduates can consider this as an opportunity. So in this slide, I'm just giving you an example of one protein that my lab work on. This is UGT2B17. This is basically a protein that metabolizes drugs, and it is called, it is a part of this phase 2 drug metabolizing enzymes, UDP glucuronyl the glucuronotransferases. And these glucuronyl transferases are very important enzyme that kind of convert lipophilic drug to hydrophilic drugs and hydrophilic metabolites, and these metabolites are eliminated from body very fast. What I'm showing you here is we have this enzyme, we have a gene deletion for this enzyme. So UGT2B17 has a gene deletion, meaning there are individuals, living individuals, who do not have this protein. Okay, this is an important drug metabolizing enzymes, and there are a number of people who do not have this this particular enzyme. And so what is shown in red is the UGT2B17 deleted population, meaning they do not have UGT2B17, and then we have UGT2B17 present population where we have UGT2B17. And there is a huge ethnic variability in this distribution. So if you look into Caucasians, which is, I'm not showing here the US population because US is a mixed population, but we can consider the European Caucasians as US population for the time. And if you look into this particular pie here, what you are seeing is there are 25% individuals who do not have this protein. So if you are giving this drug to these 25% individuals, what you're going to see is that the drug metabolism will be affected, and so you can see higher concentration in this in these individuals of a drug, and less concentration of the metabolite. If we go back in the Pacific side and see in Japan, there are 90% individuals who do not have this protein. So only 10% individuals in Japan have this particular protein. And so that can be a huge impact when you're giving drugs and optimizing drug therapy from the drug dosing in for example in the US or in UK, and then giving the same drug to Japan. It can have detrimental impact there. Similarly, if you look into India and Southeast Asia, we have more than 50% population who do not have this protein. And so what are the consequences? Are there drugs which are metabolized by this this particular enzyme? And I just want to give an example here, which is one of the kind of gold standard example, this MK7246. This is a drug which was being developed, or I think it's still under development by Merck. It's a selective CRTH2 antagonist, which is basically an asthma drug. So this receptor is also called prostaglandin 2 receptor. So it is basically an asthma drug which was being developed. And what they found is they found huge variability in the pharmacokinetics when they were doing clinical trials in individuals. And they kind of abandoned the clinical trials and looked into what might be causing this variability. And then they did genetic testing of these individuals, these subjects, and found that those who are expressing STAR2 of UGT2B17, which is basically gene deletion. So these individuals with STAR2, which is shown in the green dots and line here, they do not have UGT2B17. And what they observed is these individuals have 25-fold higher concentration of MK7246 in their plasma. Okay, what that means is it looks like you can think about it that you have given 25 tablets instead of 1 tablet to this particular individual here, right? So the plasma concentration is 25-fold higher, and that's really unprecedented. This is a huge difference. Typically, we don't see this difference, but there are rare incidences like this that we can miss. And so if you think this drug as a toxic drug, taking 25 tablets of any drug could be poison, as I mentioned, right? So they are giving the same dose, but this individual is experiencing like the load of 25 drugs, 25 tablets together. Not only this, the age is also an important determinant of the variability in UGT2B17. For example, I'm showing here, this is data from our lab where we basically obtained 455 human liver samples and quantified UGT2B17 in the liver samples and found that this particular enzyme is not expressed in kids below 9 years of age, except few exceptions here, but in majority of kids, it is not expressed. So which indicates that if you're using this drug or similar drugs, which are substrates of UGT2B17 in children, you can see a very high concentration of drug in the plasma of these children, which can cause toxicity, basically. So another example I want to give here is this codeine, particularly with respect to children. So codeine is a drug that is commonly used in fever, cold, cough, with aspirin, with acetaminophen, which we call paracetamol in India, and chlorpheniramine. What is interesting about this is really prevalent in India. Codeine basically as a constituent in with other drugs, right? Although the dose could be lower. But when you look into the codeine, there is an interesting fact about codeine, that codeine is metabolized by this enzyme called CYP, or cytochrome P450-2D6, which metabolizes codeine to morphine. And morphine is a potent drug. It can cause a number of complications, but certainly it can relieve from the pain, but this also is a toxic drug if you take in high concentration. The interesting thing about this enzyme, the CYP2D6, cytochrome P450-2D6, is this enzyme is highly polymorphic, meaning one person can have very high concentration of 2D6, like I talked about UGT2B17, and the other person will have very low or no activity of UGT2B6 as shown here. So there are these extensive metabolizers, and they are poor metabolizer. They are ultra poor ultra metabolizers basically as well. And how this is defined? So if you look into CYP2D gene in human genome, what you will see is there are 3 proteins basically: CYP2D gene, CYP2D6, CYP2D7, and CYP2D8. And particularly this CYP2D6 is what is prevalent in humans, but there are basically 4 classes of CYP2D6 that we see. So we have some individuals who have 2 copies of 2D6, right? So they have a very high activity of 2D6. Some individuals are normal, but then there is low functional alleles, meaning they have low or defective protein. They have protein, but this is defective protein. It cannot work the same way as the normal protein works, the functional allele. And then finally, we have those individuals who are non-functional, where we have non-functional copies of CYP2D6. So we see a huge the impact on drug metabolism. So you will not see basically any metabolism in this case. So the codeine to morphine conversion will not happen here. There will be more codeine, but in case of duplication, we will have a high metabolism from codeine to morphine. And that is really important because morphine is the active constituent. And so if active constituent is varying from one person to another person, your effect can vary as well. I'm just giving you some references here that in India, from North India to South India, there is a huge variability in the UG2B17, CYP2D6 variability. Around 0 to 20% population is poor metabolizers, basically. They cannot metabolize codeine to morphine, but there are ultra metabolizers also. In the US, if you look into the historical data since 1969, the codeine has been linked to 64 causes of serious breathing problems and 24 deaths in children and adolescents, which is a lot, which is a significant number when it comes to the deaths caused by drugs. Here is one example which is really interesting that I would like to share. This is done by some of our collaborators from in the US, and this study was done in 2007. And basically, this is not a study, this is a case example where they looked into a case, a newborn died from morphine poisoning when his mother used codeine while breastfeeding. So this case is just one patient. This mom is taking mom is taking codeine, and the newborn was died while breastfeeding from morphine poisoning. When they did postmortem test in the blood and quantified blood concentration of morphine in the infant, they found 70 nanogram per ml concentration of morphine, which is 6-fold higher than the normal concentration, which typically, if the breastfeeding mother is, because the drug can be released from mother through breast to infant, and typically it is normally it is almost 10 nanogram per ml, but in this case, it was 7 nanogram per ml. The mother was prescribed Tylenol, and that is really codeine 30 milligram with acetaminophen, which is a normal dose of codeine. So there was no basically foul play there. But then when they did analysis of the milk for morphine, it showed 87 nanogram per ml concentration, which kind of matches with what they are seeing in the newborn after postmortem. So what is causing this really high concentration in mom? And the answer here is they have, the mother was found to be an ultra rapid metabolizer of CYP2D6. So mother has a very high concentration of CYP2D6, which is converting codeine to morphine. Okay, and so this is something that I'm emphasizing here, that the variability in drug response can be because of this metabolism differences. We also did some work and we looked into, so if you take codeine, codeine is metabolized by 2D6 or almost 5 to 15% only. Codeine is converted to morphine, which is the active constituent, and then morphine is deactivated by this enzyme UGG2B7, which is different from UGG2B17 I talked about. When we looked into in the liver samples from neonates to adults, what we found is neonates have almost 20 to 40-fold lower concentration of UGG2B7. So what is happening in this particular case here is not only 2D6 is high in the mom, but this UGG2B7, which is metabolizing morphine to these inactive metabolites, is much lower in newborn liver. Similarly, the codeine in this UGG2B7 in mom could be a problem, which is detoxifying. So it can also add variability basically. So with this, what I'm showing here is that FDA considered this problem and then restricted basically codeine for children and even the contraindicated in the breastfeeding mothers. But when I looked into, and this is not recently that I did, but when I looked into the Medindia's database, there are 145 brands of generic drugs with codeine. These are some of the formulation. I'm sure some of these are banned. Some of them are outdated. But just to get an, tell you that I think this understanding that codeine could be toxic, and because we don't have a good medical record system in India, this could be a big challenge, and we might not be knowing the exact cause of toxicity or even deaths if we are still using the codeine without understanding this pharmacogenomic effect. So now I'm segueing to from giving you examples of precision medicine. I would like to now relate this precision medicine with COVID-19, and particularly emphasizing that what is important as a pharmacist, what should we understand. Precision medicine is all about giving right dose to right patient, doing right diagnosis of a disease, giving right combination of drugs, the right drug, right dose, right time, and so on. Plus, we, with respect to COVID-19, there is another problem that is there is a lot of misinformation, and as a pharmacist, I think we can play a greater role. And when I'm saying pharmacist, I'm talking about all pharmacy graduates. I'm talking all all of us who have learned pharmacy, that this right information about drugs is really important. So what is COVID-19? COVID-19 is caused by a new strain of coronavirus, which is severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, SARS-CoV-2. And the most likely ecological reservoir for SARS-CoV-2 are bats, but it is also believed that the virus jumped from one species to another species before reaching to human. And as you know, this is one of the not one of the, this is, I would say, this is the worst pandemic that we have seen in our lifetime. So, which has certainly affected all of us. where we stand today in terms of COVID-19, the patient number, we are almost, touching, which are like tested positive. We are touching 10 million cases, basically, which is 1 crore cases. So it's a huge number, 10 million cases, and of which we still like around 60,000 are in severe condition. We already lost around 500,000 individuals, so 5 lakhs the people globally, and of course there is a good recovery rate, but it's still this 5 lakh is 5%, which is unprecedented. When it comes to how quickly people died because of this problem. And this is basically map showing, I just copied it from this website here, but as you can see, India is number 4, as you all are aware. And what I want to highlight here is there are these high-risk COVID patients, right? We know that the individuals with lung diseases, with heart disease, or even blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, the people who are immunocompromised, like who are taking chemotherapy, and these immunosuppressants, those with kidney dysfunction or liver dysfunction, they are high risk. This is high risk population. Most of the time, the disease is affecting or causing more severe effect on people who are older, and what that why that complicates problem is because they are already taking some medication. So there is a polypharmacy that is happening, and which causes this greater likelihood of drug-drug interaction. So there is a greater risk to drug-drug interaction. There is also high risk of self-medication when it comes to herbal medicines, as you are aware that people do take things as even preventive. As a pharmacist or a pharmacy graduate, we should think about it and educate people about these possible drug-drug interactions in this case. So what are drug-drug interactions? How do we define drug-drug interactions? So the drug-drug interaction is when one drug is affecting the efficacy of another drug. It can cause toxicity also, right? When you affect the efficacy, another drug can cause toxicity as well. When one drug affects the performance of another drug, that's called drug-drug interaction. Drug-drug interaction could be generally classified as pharmacokinetic drug-drug interaction and pharmacodynamic drug-drug interactions. And these pharmacokinetic drug-drug interaction are those when one drug is modifying the absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion of another drug, right? So it could be enzyme or transport inhibition, enzyme or transport induction, altered distribution, altered renal secretion, and so on. Similarly, the pharmacodynamic drug-drug interaction are those when one drug is directly modifying the pharmacodynamic response as an additive effect or synergistic effect, and could be antagonistic effect in some cases. And these all, the drug-drug interaction can either cause toxicity or lack of efficacy for drugs. So I will be giving some examples of proposed COVID-19 treatment options that are there. I think you all are aware of this this list that I'm listing here. So people are talking about dexamethasone or chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, remdesivir, or favipiravir, which is recently approved as a generic from Glenmark also, which is originally invented in Japan in 2014. Then there are other drugs that are listed here, including this convalescent plasma, which is nothing but this is a plasma taken from isolated from the infected person, okay, as well as herbal products. And what I will be talking in next few slides is why should we consider precision medicine in COVID-19 pharmacotherapy, okay? And so let's start with dexamethasone. And if you look into literature about dexamethasone, dexamethasone has shown to decrease the risk of dying, risk of death in very ill hospitalized COVID-19 patients. And this report was published before kind of released before publication, so it's not peer reviewed, but there is certainly these data. And then the effect, this is effective for those patients who have developed a hyperimmune response, or we also call it cytochrome storm. And so this is only good for those individuals who have this hyperimmune response. So I think that when I'm talking about right patient basically right time, this is where what I meant by the right patient here. That we have to identify who are the people who will be benefiting from this. And I'm sure the physicians are working on this, but pharmacists can play a significant role here in advising as well. Then the other thing is where pharmacy graduates can play a significant role in educating about side effects of dexamethasone. This is something that there is no harm in telling people who are taking dexamethasone that there are some side effects. You don't need to be a doctor to tell people that there are side effects of a drug. So that awareness is important, because we want to avoid this situation of self-medication that people are getting from medical stores and then taking dexamethasone by themselves. So this is really important time. Drug-drug interactions, we know that we talked about polypharmacy, we talked about comorbidity, like, heart problems, or, basically the coagulation problems and so on. So drugs such as digoxin, clopidogrel, warfarin, aspirin, these are all drugs that are regularly used as a chronic therapy in heart complications. This can interact with dexamethasone. I mean, ibuprofen, for example, can also interact with dexamethasone. So I think that understanding as a pharmacy student or a pharmacy graduate, it is important for these drugs, especially in this in these times. Then we talked about more the terrible situation here with chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, and azithromycin. This was basically reported in China and other places also, that the patients with severe symptoms of COVID-19 improved more quickly when given chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine. Okay, again, these clinical trials are anecdotal. They were not clearly like well-planned clinical trials. And some doctors, when they used azithromycin, it was working better. And then the people came out and came up with a lot of concepts and a lot of basically speculations that this will really work. And even the political class has used that as a boost for boost for economy, the dying economy basically, and kind of led to misinformation. And here is the time when we as a pharmacist should look critically into literature. And when you look into literature, if you particularly the recent reports, there are less benefits. Even there is a greater risk to death due to lethal heart rhythm abnormalities. Regarding the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine, especially, the New England Journal of Medicine recently published this paper that it is not able to prevent the COVID-19 infection. Okay, so it is important to make the patient aware of not only these facts, but also the potential drug-drug interactions of chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, and azithromycin. These are drugs that when you take chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine, they stay in the body for longer time. Their half-lives are in days to sometimes months. And so they don't, we don't have capacity to eliminate them faster. And if you're taking them as a preventive, they are accumulating in the body. Okay, one example I would like to give, particularly hydroxychloroquine, is it goes inside the blood cells and it stays there. That's how it works for malaria. That it goes inside red blood cells and the concentration is so high that it is killing the malaria, the bacteria there. So I think we have to understand the mechanism of how drug is getting eliminated from body as well. So that we can prevent this self-medication. These are some of the examples I would like to show you, and I'm sure you have seen these examples, but hydroxychloroquine study showed no benefits, more deaths when used at the VA hospitals in the US for COVID-19. There are some terrible reports of like fearing coronavirus. This Arizona man dies after taking a form of chloroquine used to treat aquariums. There is report from India also, like deaths of some doctor who took hydroxychloroquine to prevent COVID-19 caused ripple. So yeah, there are these reports that came after, which are really due to misinformation. And so what I'm emphasizing here is, as we have domain knowledge, we should utilize it as a strength and just informing people in a right way. Remdesivir, this is more promising drug from Gilead that is recently approved by FDA also for the treatment of COVID-19. A well-designed study published in, again, New England Journal of Medicine, which is one of the highly impact journal, showed promising results. However, it should be noted that it is not that good in patients who are in ventilator, who are sicker. However, FDA went on ahead and basically approved for adult and children hospitalized with severe COVID-19 illness. Currently, remdesivir is given as an IV formulation. There are, I think, there are discussion on the oral formulation also, and also inhalation formulation to cure the infection. But something that to be understood about a drug is how is drug metabolized? How is drug going out of the body? Because that's something that you can understand to predict whether there is a likelihood of drug-drug interaction. And in this particular case, if you look into drug, it's metabolized to this metabolite, which is this GS441524. But 75% of remdesivir is recovered in feces. And so certainly there is something going on when you give intravenous. Majority of it is coming in the feces, which is primarily due to this transport system and efflux system. And these efflux system could be different from one person to another person and can cause significant variability. But also there is likelihood of drug-drug and drug-herb interactions in this case. So how should pharmacists play a role? I just copied this from University of Manitoba's the website, but I think and added few of the things from certain other literature here. So how pharmacists can play a role, ensuring that the COVID-19 medicines are used effectively, educating people about COVID-19, including hygiene and so on. And then one thing that we can work on really hard is this debunking myths and reiterating the importance of well-documented facts, peer-reviewed journals. We talk about regulatory approvals, whether a drug is approved through a proper process or not, because there could be drugs coming in the market without the good approval, a thorough, rigorous approval process. In certain U.S. states, they are looking more to pharmacists to basically provide patient care services, including administering testing for COVID-19. As cases in India are increasing and the hospital manpower is certainly, there is a need of pharmacists, and so these are some of the opportunities I'm sure the Indian governments are also looking into. Then here in the US, the federal government is lifting some of the regulations regarding telehealth. So drug can be prescribed or can be basically kind of mailed to patients, and I'm sure these things are happening in India, but these are all opportunities. And then one thing that I highlighted is, when we are giving these drugs to COVID-19 patients, we are not talking just the drugs I listed here, but even the drugs for comorbidity, like they're already taking drugs for hypertension or diabetes. Just keeping track of, there could be some specific drug interaction that can be that a patient can report to a pharmacist, because we know that the physicians do not have time most of the time. And so then moving to this, the new topic that I think it's a big news in India, and I thought it would be important for me to touch this. So how can pharmacy graduates educate people about herbal products? And this is really important because these are some things that people can overdose easily, and people sometimes people will not need any prescription. And so what we need to educate as a pharmacy graduate is that all herbal products are not safe. Okay, a herbal product can also be a poison. As I mentioned here, the dose matters here too. These are some of the examples. We talked about morphine. Morphine is a natural compound. Quinine, the ephedrine, or nicotine, and so on. So if you think of, and there are a number of, these are just some of the alkaloids. I mean, there are other categories of natural products also which are toxic. It's all about dose. We talk about digoxin. It's a natural product, and it is a very narrow therapeutic index drug. If you increase the concentration, there are detrimental effects. There are a number of deaths because of digoxin, and so although you take it as a natural product, which is a diluted form, but if you overdose and if people self-medicate, there is always a chance of toxicity that a pharmacist should play a greater role here in spreading this awareness. How about drug-drug interaction? Just giving this example of St. John's wort drug interactions. And the St. John wort is basically this the hypercomperforatum, and if you see this particular herbal compound is an inducer of cytochrome P450, and P-glycoprotein. As some of you might know, that cytochrome P450 and P-glycoprotein are the major defense system when it comes to drug metabolism and transport. So CYP3A4 is expressed in the liver and intestine, and it metabolizes a large number of drugs. And similarly, PGP also expressed in liver and intestine, and it basically detoxifies. It basically fluxes drugs to intestine from liver as well as from intestine itself. If you induce these things, that particularly with respect to CYP3A4, what happens is there is faster detoxification, which leads to loss of efficacy in some drugs, especially in case of oral contraceptives and warfarin, where it is a big problem that people taking the St. John wort for depression, for example, can also cause failure in drug efficacy. And these are some of the drugs where we know that there are severe drug-drug interactions. There are in total almost 900 drugs where the drug interactions are shown with this particular natural compound. Similarly, going back to the coronal tablet here, we know that there is ashwagandha there, and we know ashwagandha is also called the poison gooseberry. There are side effects, there are drug-drug interactions, and so it is important for us to acknowledge these things and spreading this awareness that whoever is taking these drugs needs to understand that what are the side effects, what are the drug-drug interactions. If you look into the system in the Western countries, like here, the pharmacist actually is continuously working with the patients, and pharmacist works as a consultant, basically. And so pharmacist is educating patient continuously on the side effect, continuously on the drug-drug interaction, and keep tracks of things. What drug a patient is taking, what dose, what time, what are the side effects, if there are side effects, and so on. So, and you can basically call your pharmacist anytime and get information, which is something that we need to implement in Indian context as well. I'm not saying that the system is perfect here, but I think as a pharmacy graduate, it is good for us to kind of debate and discuss on this issue here. One thing, in coronal tablet, we talked about, they have the holy basil, and the holy basil also has constituents that can interact with, for example, phenobarbital and so on. So where we stand, how as an academic institute, or as a pharmacy, an academician in academic institutes, what can we do? And the first thing is, these are my thoughts, but we can talk about these issues of, does current pharmacy curriculum address infectious diseases in detail? I think we need to understand infectious diseases, and we need to teach our students infectious diseases, particularly after COVID-19, in more greater details. How to manage comorbidities when it comes to the geriatric problems, right? We are talking about people who are more than 60 generally are taking more than 8 drugs per day all over the world. I mean, particularly in the US, this is on an average there are 8 drugs that on an average a person with age more than 60 is taking. And if there is a COVID-19 situation, what that comorbidity can cause, right? There could be drug-drug interaction, there could be drug herb interactions, which we talked about, herbal products. Then patient compliance is a big issue that a pharmacist can play an important role, and pharmacists can be trained on being basically consultants for with respect to patient compliance. We know about tuberculosis. We know about the drug resistance, and the big failure of treating tuberculosis in India was because of the patients were not compliant. They were not taking all the drugs at right dose, and then there was this drug resistance that developed. Then we need to teach our students about precision medicine. I think we need to ask this question. And finally, regarding the drug interactions, we need to keep updating our curriculum with respect to, because there are new drugs coming and there is always this potential of drug interaction. I'm just copying this clip from Times of India from 2 days back, where the minister in the central government talks about this medical curriculum will have to be adapt itself in post COVID-19 era. And I think some of the thoughts I'm discussing here for pharmacy curriculum are also reflected there. What are the opportunities for pharmaceutical R&D? I think the pharmaceutical industry, particularly in last 10 to 20 years, has gone through a very significant change. Particularly in the United States, we have seen that big pharma companies are not developing drugs. They are going to either very small, ventures, spin-off companies from universities, or they are actually working with academic institutes. So this has become a very big trend. If you look into all drugs developed, and most of the drugs developed in last 15 years, these big pharma companies are getting clue from small, companies where one scientist from a university started this company, and then they basically leverage that. So this has led to a huge focus on the academic institutions. What is really critical here is that collaboration between academic institutes and pharmaceutical industry. And so sharing your domain knowledge, sharing your understanding, and you can be just a molecular modeler, you can be just a informatics person, but what is really critical is you can share your domain knowledge here. I just got this thing from this advertisement from Indian government site, particularly the AICTE and CSIR are supporting these drug discovery hackathons, and I think there is an opportunity for sure. Finally, there is advantages or opportunities for drug manufacturers, particularly in India. This is a report again in Times of India, actually coming from Shanghai, that India has so far supplied medicines to 133 countries in fight against COVID-19. And so India has capabilities to produce cheaper and good quality drugs for infectious diseases. I think this should be certainly explored further and leveraged. New pharmacy graduate can explore entrepreneurial path and take advantages of Hatch-Waxman Act, which is basically the Drug Price Competition and Patent Term Restoration Act of 1984 that allows generic industries to have some market exclusivity and basically compete with the innovator in certain circumstances. Finally, the precision medicine in practice, I just want to give an example of there are certain patients who might be needing different dose where the formulation is not available. So these small scale compounding pharmacies, these are becoming very common now in the US, and where one person is running these compounding pharmacies where you can basically use a very small tableting machine and you can create a small tablet that is useful to a kid. or useful to a person who is ultra rapid metabolizer, or you know, and so on. And so this is something that will be coming. Other fields and opportunities, I think there are certainly opportunities for us to start testing facilities, therapeutic drug monitoring in the era of precision medicine, private drug testing labs, contract clinical research organizations. We're talking about natural product characterization, contract research labs. There will be more and more stringent requirements for natural product research. And I think this is something that can be further leveraged using our domain knowledge. You know, I have listed some of the things like the consultant pharmacists, pharmacoinformatics, you know, drug controllers and inspector have a greater role and responsibilities. There are new fields of pharmacoeconomics and pharmacovigilance that I can talk in the question and answer session. And finally, to conclude, I think it is really important in this precision medicine era and COVID-19 era that we make sure that we do right diagnosis, we spread right information, and basically correct the information. We identify the right patient, right drug, right combination of drugs, and right dosing. And I hope I have convinced you that the precision medicine in this COVID-19 era has become really important field of research, and we have a lot of opportunities here. So we can see so challenges as opportunities. We can optimally use our domain knowledge. I think the message that I want to leave here is that innovation and entrepreneurial attitude are the needs of the hour, and collaboration and teamwork across disciplines, you know, is a key that we need to think of. This is really important for the success. So with this, I would like to thank, you know, basically acknowledging my groups, because, you know, some of the data I presented in 1 or 2 slides were generated by these individuals here and my collaborators that I work with. And this is our Washington State University logo, which is very creative and very neat. And this is something that I would like to show you also. I'm from Spokane, which is a very small city, relatively, when we compare to Indian cities. And you know, this is our campus here, and you know, within 40 minutes of drive, we have these nice natural views and beautiful the sport the event. So I would certainly encourage you to think, when you are thinking of applying for graduate program or master's program, in our program. We don't have a master program right now, but we are hoping to have next year. So with this, I would like to thank you again for listening, and thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I hope I did not take too long, and I have time to answer questions.
Thanks, Bhagwat, for your beautiful words. I think with your permission, can we take questions from the audience?
Yeah, please.
So very first question is from Dr. Sardando Misra. Question 1 is there: what are the real-time issues encountered during academia-industry collaboration?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to take questions one by one? I can go.
Yeah. You can also take.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I think the academia industry interaction is really key for success in this academic journey. And what I see is that academia industry collaboration are very important for students also, because they get a different perspective, and so they kind of it enriches their graduate journey, or when they are involved in research. So to answer your question, what are the key hurdles? I think the biggest hurdle is not trying. That's the biggest hurdle. You know, we need to be we have nothing to lose if we go and talk about you know, to industry folks. One thing that will be really the beneficial would be to establish a connection. And so if your institute is looking for industry academic collaboration, the first step could be to invite them as a guest speaker, or to engage them in the discussion. So what people really like in industry is whether this academic institute deserve to be part of the collaboration with industry, or there is a need of the institute. And we don't want to show that there is a need of the institute to establish this collaboration. Rather, we can establish that through our work and interaction. So I would say, trying this approach. The second thing is there are certainly some logistical challenges with respect to intellectual property and those things, but I think there are mechanisms. All big pharmaceutical companies, they have mechanisms, and academic institutes do have some mechanisms, especially in the United States and even in Indian Institute where I worked before. There are certainly those mechanisms. So in my opinion, it's always good to start this discussion. And one more thing I would like to add is there should be this assessment of win-win situations. So these collaborations should be win-win. It should be giving some benefit to the industry, and that can be leveraged. Yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah. So next question is from one more participant. A recent Italian study suggested that COVID-19 virus may get weaker and disappear on its own. Is it possible?
Okay, that's a very good question. I'm not a biologist, or even a physician here, but I have seen some of the reports, and there is certainly people talking about this immune response, and until we have really concrete evidence, I would not rely on that. I don't think there is a reason to celebrate here with this news. So I would take it as a pinch of salt, and I would certainly work aggressively to take care of the current situation.
Okay, one more question from Dr. Rahul Kaushik. Still, HCQ, hydrochlorine, is used in many countries as a prophylactic treatment to health workers. Patanjali has launched 100% cure for COVID-19. Is it really possible?
Yeah, I think I touched about these issues. I talked about this with the Patanjali drug Coronil also. I'm not saying it cannot work. What I'm saying is, as a pharmacy graduate, I think we need to ask questions, and these are good questions. We need to discuss this. What are the evidence with respect to hydroxychloroquine? We have to look into literature. We have to read and discuss, and then educate the community. With hydroxychloroquine, there are more reports which are saying there is no effect, or there are more toxicity than those which are saying there is cure by hydroxychloroquine. Because there is a high recovery rate, it could be a coincidence that people are taking those and they are getting recovered. And so it's all about that. When it comes to recovery, it is important that how the clinical trial were designed, whether it's a double-blind clinical trial is, we are doing this randomized clinical trial with placebo and so on, or it's just a case study, which could be interpreted based on the interest from the drug manufacturer's perspective, or even the interest of to boost the economy, for example. So I would really consider it rationally. Regarding the Patanjali drug, my 2 cents here is number one, we need to make sure that people are educated that all herbal drugs are not safe. Okay, and it should be there should be the consent from, not consent, but there should be recommendation from or prescription for these the medications also. People should not self-medicate and cause other problems. So I think it is possible that there is a cure for mild infection, because based on my reading, the infection so far treated by this Patanjali drug are mild, and it could be serendipity again. Yeah. So I would again take it with pinch of salt. Yeah.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
And one more question
Yeah.
from Fahad Fazal.
Uh-huh.
He is asking a very usual question that can B.Pharm graduates work in US, and what are the job opportunities and what exams they are supposed to get appear?
Okay. Yeah, this is a very good question, and the Fahad. One thing I would tell you is when I was doing diploma or even B.Pharm, we were not thinking of doing like M.Pharm or Ph.D. And so usually what happens is the higher education gives you more specialization, and so there are more opportunities for higher education. For B.Pharm students, if they are looking for career opportunities, I think one thing that we did mistake when we were doing our B.Pharm or even diploma is that we only think that this pharmacy is the only discipline where we can go. Okay, today we have huge opportunities in a number of the sectors, right? Because you are bachelor, you have a bachelor degree in this with this domain, and you can look into the pharmacovigilance, pharmacoeconomics. So doing masters in economics and this pharmacoeconomics is a huge field. In fact, it's going to be one of the most important field in pharmaceutical sciences. Is there a question, Sandeep?
Uh,
There is an echo coming, or
I think some technical.
okay.
That will
So yeah, so I would say that there are certainly opportunities for a B.Pharm student, but my personal recommendation is there are much greater opportunities when it comes to these specialized field that you can add on, like pharmacovigilance or clinical trial, the masters in clinical trial, masters in pharmacovigilance or pharmacoeconomics. These are certainly areas where there are more opportunities in the US. Based on my experience, the B.Pharm opportunities are limited because somebody has to sponsor your visa, and that visa is sponsored based on your unique knowledge or specialization, basically. So that's why I'm bringing this specialization here.
So you suggest that one should go for masters.
Yeah, the masters would be an optimum, and so there are a number of pharmacy schools, including ours. Now we are opening our master's program. So there are opportunities from bachelor to masters, and then that masters will give you the specialization.
So can Indian graduates apply for that?
Yeah, anybody can apply for masters. You have to have GRE because the graduate programs. You have to have GRE. I think there is no minimum for GRE, but you should have a GRE exam.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more question from Dr. Rahul Kosik. Can we apply the technique of molecular docking and other tools to naturally occurring compounds in designing anti-COVID medicine?
Oh, of course. I think this is something that should be leveraged. Yeah, I mean, if you know some unique proteins, say specificity in COVID, we are working on in a collaboration with Indian Institute of Technology and Georgia University with some of the specific target proteins of COVID-19 to understand whether we can develop a drug. And so our starting point is the molecular modeling. So yes, if you if there is specific proteins known that are uniquely expressed in COVID-19, which are not in human, they can be, and there are crystal structure available. You can do COVID basically molecular modeling and design molecule. But what I'm saying is the collaboration is the key. Collaborating with industry is the key. When you have molecules, the in silico design molecule, working with approaching industry and talking to, there are these liaisons, they call it. Big pharma companies, they have a very systematic way of collaborations. Every pharmaceutical company has this the open channel for submitting grants when it comes to innovation. And so certainly, I think there are the molecules that if you think they are working good and they have been proven in silico to be optimum can be leveraged.
And one more question that from Deepak Srivastava, can repurposing process helpful to develop the treatment for COVID-19?
So yeah, I think this what we are seeing right now is repurposing only, right? So we are using like remdesivir was developed for Ebola, and then so this is the good thing about repurposing is because you have done the safety studies, you have done the toxicity studies, you have a good understanding of the safety and efficacy. So for the faster approval, if you are designing a new drug, it's going to take time. If it is it's not an orphan trial anymore now because there is a huge population, and so you are going to do clinical trials. They can allow you direct clinical trials, but for new drugs, still you have to do like bench work so that the drug is not toxic, and make sure in animal studies things are working well. So for drug discovery and development, if you see, there is a huge component of before clinical trials. There is a huge component. And even during clinical trials, so the phase 1 trials are important because they establish pharmacokinetics and safety. So if it is repurposing, then you don't have to do these all up to phase 1 trial. You can directly go to phase 2 trial and start your clinical trial on patients with repurposing. That's why you can expedite your drug development, and because it's needed urgently, so repurposing seems to be optimum approach at this stage.
I think remdesivir and favipiravir both are repurposed, no?
Yeah, they are repurposed. Yeah, they were developed before. Their safety was established. And so once you have already human trials done, then it's safe.
What are the differences between personalized medicine and precision medicine? This is a very basic fundamental question.
Yeah, I think this is a very thin line here. In layman term, they are similar, but scientifically they are related, little bit different. When we talk about personalized medicine, we are talking about an individual. And that's a very difficult thing. It's an ambitious project if you are thinking of dosing an individual with a certain dose. But when it comes to precision medicine, you can actually divide people into groups. Like I was talking about this liver dysfunction group versus normal group, right? Or kidney dysfunction group versus normal group. So if you understand the differences in biology, differences in physiology of two groups, you can divide, or male versus females, or pregnant versus non-pregnant. And so the precision medicine is basically based on the mechanisms, not based on individual characteristics only. So it's basically stratifying people into groups, which is more manageable than thinking of individual patients.
Hello?
Yes?
I think I ask participants to, if there is any more query, please post it. So that one question from Subham Sharma, that how can I become a pharmacist in US from India?
Yeah, I think the system is very different. You have to get us certified. You have to get to be certified. So before, the people who have done BPharm before 2002 or 2003, I think, they can give a test and get that certificate. But now the one way is to do PharmD here, which is a 4-year program. We do have PharmD program, and we do have a lot of international students. And so after PharmD, people can become pharmacists here. So that's, I think that's the easiest route to be a pharmacist in the US, is to do PharmD in the US.
So I think queries are resolved now. There is no more query. So Bhagwat, I
Yeah, I see there is one more question, if I can answer.
You can.
Yeah, so there is a question. I don't know whether I missed more questions, but so the person is asking about GRE score and get the masters. Are there 100% scholarship? So the master's program, usually you don't have 100% scholarship, but the PhD program, you get 100% scholarship. Yeah.
And what is the better option, MS or PharmD? one more question.
If you want to be a pharmacist, then PharmD is a better option. If you want to go to pharma industry and even further do PhD, then MS is a good option. And the good thing about MS is MS allows you to work for, it automatically provides you like kind of work training visa for 3 years. So you don't have to worry about H-1B or, those kind of visa in the US. You can stay in the US as a trainee for 2 years, for 3 years. And then in that time, you can basically get your visa sponsor.
So thanks, Bhagwat.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep, and thanks again, the organizers for giving me this platform. And I'm glad that there were good discussion, and I wish all of you, good luck and also good health. Thank you so much.
At last, I would like to say that we are going to provide all the participants the recording of this all the event, and with due permission, if you permit, we can also share your presentation if you permit.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
should be good.
We will share PDF of this presentation so that more and more participants can read it. So let's close
happy
it.
Then. There is. Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Bhagwat. Thanks again. I thanks you from my organization and all the principals, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.